You're tuning into the Game Sports Podcast. Welcome to another edition of the game. It is David McCaig Jr., the host of the Game Sports Podcast, powered by 91. And before I get to the agenda tonight, I want to say happy birthday to my father, David McCaig Sr. Happy 60th birthday. In the first segment, I will be joined by Alex Parr talking hockey, in particular the 1990 NHL Re-Draft. In segment 2, it will be yours truly, riding solo, discussing basketball, in particular the hot topic of Bronny James. In the third and final segment, I will be joined by Connor Henderson, talking all things in the world of baseball. Let's go. Booyah, and it's time for the Game Sports Podcast. It is your host, David McCaig Jr. Right off the hop, I am joined by the one, the only, the beautiful Alex Parr. Alex, my friend, how goes it? How goes the battle? How's everything?
Golf game's okay for this time of the year. You know, not mid-season form, but we're working our way towards it. I wore a lot of Leaf stuff, and that didn't really work well for me. The team kind of sucked, so I'm starting to wear stuff of a team that does suck already in hopes that maybe we can change fortune for them. So that's about the only battles I got going on right now.
Good battle. Speaking of that, that's a good segue because we will have Connor on later on in the show, and we'll be talking about a lot of things baseball, but the Blue Jays are definitely on the agenda. Now, speaking of golf, I like to always give a promo to this because it happens yearly. So Michael Doan's annual golf tournament's at its 7th year. I have the glass right here, and I'm enjoying a beverage in it. I will be open and honest with everybody out there. I'm enjoying a nice beverage in there, but I am speaking about the Michael Doan golf tournament that's taking place June 1st here in Sault Ste. Marie. It's a tournament that I took part in for 6 years. Unfortunately, I was unable to be able to commit to going this year. Really sad that I will not be able to attend it this year, but we'll be back in it next year. But nonetheless, if you do not have a team and you're from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, I know this is kind of directed towards you in Sault Ste. Marie, but if you want to go to be part of a good cause and to also be a part of a golf charity tournament, Michael Doan Golf Tournament. He was a teammate of mine for a number of years and was also the same age as myself, grew up playing hockey together. He was fantastic. He played obviously some D1 hockey over in the States as well. Very good goaltender, very good all-around athlete. So I like to always give a plug to the Mike Doan Charity Golf Tournament in its 7th year this year. My goodness. 7 years. And for the first year, I'll not be part of it, Parr. But again, I won't get into that story. But we're here on the Game Sports Podcast in this first segment talking about the game of hockey. Dane Hantrow won't be joining us here tonight. A little bit sad about that because of obviously some schedule conflicts, but he is an Edmonton Oilers fan. And that's to say how it is. If you live under a rock, you didn't watch Game 7, which was taking place last night, May the 20th, at the time of this recording anyway. The Edmonton Oilers defeated the Vancouver Canucks and have moved on to the Western Conference Final and will be taking on the Dallas Stars. And yes, if you must know, I did text Dane and say it must be nice. If you know, you know. Alex, the Western Conference Final is set. The Eastern Conference Final is set. You got the Rangers, you got the Panthers. A little bit surprised. I didn't predict the Rangers going that far, to be honest.
Really?
I actually thought the Rangers would be a round 2 team and out. I've learned that you got to stop doubting the Rangers this year, I think. Got to stop doubting the Rangers. But then the Western Conference Final, as I just said, you got the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers. They got some playoff history there. It's been a long time since, well, a good number of years since thousands since they played against each other, but they're gonna rebirth that history. So I'm gonna give you the floor about what matchup you want to talk about first and maybe what is kind of piquing your interest out of the two matchups, whatever one's your first on your mind, because that will mean that's the one you're most interested in maybe.
I think my interest would lie in the Edmonton-Dallas series, as the first hockey team I was ever a fan of was the Dallas Stars, throwback to the NHL Face-Off 99 demo for the PlayStation 1, where you can only choose between the two teams in the Stanley Cup Final that year, the Dallas Stars and the Buffalo Sabres.
Damn.
So I picked the Stars. Mike Modano, my guy. And Dallas got a lot of love coming into this playoffs from a lot of insiders. And at first I was kind of surprised. You know, there is an East Coast bias. I'm not going to shy away from saying that. And when I heard that, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I would love to see Dallas do some damage, especially a goalie like Jake Ottinger, a little bit on the younger side. Let's see him in the pressure cooker and see what he's able to do, especially against arguably 1 and 2 best hockey players in the world. I think that'll be a little bit more exciting. On the Eastern side of things, I don't think the Rangers making it to the third round is surprising. Like, you can say like you didn't think they would, but using the word surprised is kind of crazy. You've got Igor Shesterkin, great goalie, maybe playing the
President's
best.
Trophy winner.
Yeah. Oh, that too. And Shesterkin looks like he's playing the best hockey of his career right now too. And when you get a guy like Vinny Trocheck, a guy that you're not expecting to break through as much as he has, and he's just going to be one of those guys on the long list of names of players that just show up at the right time, play super well. And you think back to other Stanley Cup winners, 2009 Penguins, Maxime Talbot. Now everybody knows that name if they know that series. And now you've got guys like Vinny Trocheck showing up exactly when it matters most.
I'm thinking of Devontae Smith-Pelly too.
Yeah.
Capitals, right? Like, if there's always a name that pops out, he's on there, and you got to arguably say Chris Kreider's got to be on that name, but he's not. He's expected to be, more impactful than what Trocheck would do.
Yeah, and Trocheck's had an absolutely phenomenal year, and it's just kind of like when you get the goalie, you get the guys that are not that Trocheck's down in the lineup, but you know what I mean, like guys that aren't in your starting lineup maybe necessarily firing on all cylinders. Those are the things that kind of storybook a Stanley Cup champion. So if I had to pick Stanley Cup final, I got Rangers, Dallas. Sorry, Dane.
See, honestly, it's funny that you mentioned like insiders and experts, and we fortunate here on the game to have a lot of people that are inside the business, and that list goes from Gazdic, goes to James Cybulski. Keep in touch with these guys, and obviously Gazdic's predictions in the beginning of the playoffs weren't correct, nor was mine, or a lot of people's. But nonetheless, there was one person that we had on our podcast that predicted the Stanley Cup champion this year, and it was James Cybulski. He picked the Dallas Stars to be Stanley Cup champions. And if you want to look back to that episode, there's a little plug for that. Great episode, obviously. But he predicted that. And I agreed with him at that point. I felt they would be a good pick. But at the same time, I thought there were teams still better that I would have picked over that. And when you look at Dallas's lineup, well built for playoffs, and players are stepping up. Right, names that you wouldn't normally think of, Hongenpa, right? Like, I probably butchered it, sorry, but you got these names on Thomas Harley, young guys playing well, Jake Ottinger, Jamie Benn. There's a captain right there that's big power forward guy built for playoff hockey. Guys like Chris Kreider and Vincent Trocheck, big guys that can put puck in the net. You got the Florida Panthers, Matt Tkachuk. There's a guy that really steps up in the playoffs. Then you can look over at the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah, McDavid and Draisaitl do their thing. Bouchard's been doing his thing, but there's been a lot of the guys that have been have been kind of pests on the side of the puck. That's been the Evander Kane, right? The guys that can really help, really tilt the momentum in a game or be that depth piece that can jump in. And Evander Kane's not a depth piece by any which means. He plays top 6 minutes. But that's what I'm saying is that contributions from up and down the lineup. And you can joke about how Zach Hyman has 35 of his 50 goals to stand at the post. Hey, right place, right time. You got to have brains when you play hockey. That's still talent to get in the right places and know what you're doing. And that's chemistry. I'm not saying this is a Gretzky-Curry chemistry, because Curry, in my mind, was better than Hyman is. Arguably, people may disagree with me on that now, but this is a different era, and the chemistry is there between him and Connor McGretzky. I'm just kidding, McDavid. So, jokes aside, this is a matchups between 4 teams that have those pieces in depth, and people that question Carolina, I'm surprised that they're not there. That's a team that I thought would be in the East against Florida. I thought there'd be a matchup because of their roster, the way it's made out. But if you look at Toronto, you look at Boston, you look at, I don't even want to count Washington, but I'll say it. You now look at those teams in comparison to seeing these teams. The regular season, the playoffs are 2 different things. Okay, and you see in the playoffs now the teams that stand out, and I really have a hard time thinking that the Toronto Maple Leafs could beat Florida or the Rangers or Carolina. Boston didn't beat Florida, so I don't think they could have beat the Rangers or Carolina either. If you're starting really to look at these teams, how they're made out, the right 4 are in the Final Four. The right 4 are in the Final Four. Arguably, I was surprised because I thought Carolina was that team over the New York Rangers, to be totally honest with you. That's where my mind was. And truthfully, I did predict the Oilers to be in the Cup Finals, but it was against Toronto. So I'm not surprised to see Edmonton here. But I am not surprised. I am not that I'm surprised, but I thought they'd be a second round team and out the Dallas Stars, because I thought maybe the Vegas Cheaters might find a way, or the Colorado Avalanche. But then obviously issues happen in Colorado, right? With Nichushkin and a lot of storylines this playoffs. But like you said, the storylines are some of the guys that have been stepping up, and Trocheck's one of them.
The Dallas Stars in the regular season had how many 20-goal scorers?
Good point. Depth.
How many? Do you know?
They had two, didn't they? They have two?
No, 20-goal scorers in the regular season.
I see now I'm going to probably embarrass myself, but
Just
I'll say it. I'll say they had one 20-goal score.
They had 8 20-goal scorers.
Just the way you asked, I figured maybe they don't have it. Was that a trick question?
Wyatt Johnson, Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, Joe Pavelski, Tyler Seguin, Matt Duchene, Mason Marchment, Jamie Benn.
Yeah, see, I should have said more than that.
8.
Yeah,
8. That's
wild.
Those 3 lines. That's nuts.
That's NHL franchise mode numbers. That's what that is. And listeners, I embarrassed myself. Trip me below if you want. The way it sounded like a trick question. I was going by depth. I was going by the trick question. I'd rather be safe than sound stupid, but I guess I still sounded stupid on that. Nonetheless,
can we pause here for a second on the Dallas Stars Colorado Avalanche series?
Yeah.
You know that no goal call that happened in the final game where Dallas ended up going on to win, but the goaltender interference thing?
Yeah.
I'm tired of watching this sport and feeling like an idiot every time that I see something that I know what it is, and then the NHL says, haha, no, it's not. I don't get it. We both watched this game. You played for a long time. How often do you find yourself looking at something on the screen and going, I know what that is, and then it's not what they say it is?
It's always been inconsistent, but the game has changed. It's faster, but it was rougher before, and they caught things more so than they do now. It's what I see.
Insulting. I feel like they're like, oh, the fans, what do they know? And they'll just call whatever garbage they feel fits for the game. I got to watch the third period of the Canada game at the World Championships. The refereeing there, I know what to expect from it every time at an international competition. It's great. It's fantastic. Every time I watch the NHL playoffs, you could literally watch a guy murder somebody and maybe they'll get a fine, maybe. Like I told Dane, like when his Edmonton Oilers were playing, I'm like, why don't you just tell Corey Perry to bring a gun and shoot somebody? He's only going to get 3 games. Why not? It's been really frustrating. It's almost why I've completely turned off watching the playoffs. I just don't know. And I've said this so many times on the show. It's exhausting. What's goal interference? I have no idea.
What is a call? What is a penalty?
What is it? Like, can we? And at the end of the day, too, like if a good fix for this, make the refs talk at the end of the game. And you know what would make me feel a little bit better if the ref goes, yeah, I got it wrong. Yeah, a little bit of accountability. Or no, better solution. Let's leave every rule in the rule book open-ended so that Gary Bettman can just say, yeah, well, that's what I decided it was this time. And our refs are the best in the world. So we don't need them to talk.
See, it's frustrating. And this isn't coming from, I want listeners to know, this isn't coming from Toronto fans that are upset at that. I know.
I thought the Leafs series was reffed okay.
It was better than most. It was probably one of the best. And I have no complaints about that. Okay. Just the better team won. That's what I'll tell you in that series if you're going to chirp us about the Leafs. But no, it's the inconsistency of the playoffs is real. But it's the one thing that has been consistent. That's not a good thing. It's been shit all year. It's been bad all year. They've actually been consistently garbage. That's the one thing. At least I can say, oh, wow, they were great in the season, shitty in the playoffs, or great in the playoffs, shitty in the season. No. They've been shit then, and they're shit now. And they've been shit for a while. A lot of swears in one sentence. And I really think that the NHL has to act on it. And I know they've had their meetings. They've had their discussions. What's their discussions over a nice glass of beer or scotch and a cigar saying, okay, we're going to talk about the LTIR. Oh, wait, we can't for 2 years. Okay, meeting's adjourned. The thing is, there's nothing being done about it. And I know players complain or coaches complain, but actions I don't see an improvement. And the people, like you said, I want to see refs get interviewed at the end of the game and facing those hard questions. You've said that on the show. I want them to be like, what the were you thinking when you called that? What'd you say? Well, I want to know. And like some refs are mic'd up, right? Heck, someone's been caught calling something and been fired for it. So the refs are mic'd up. I want to see the after footage of when they're in that huddle discussing, okay, Toronto, what do we got here? Okay. I want to know what they're saying in that conversation and that they're recorded. And I hope they're being truthful with that conversation, with every conversation. I want to know what happens and what can be changed, because the consistency of calls is bullshit. The goaltender interference, they got a little bit better at it, but it's still bad.
I think it would go a long way in the fan being able to say, like, or just being able to relate a little bit more. I mean, we all make mistakes. But when we make a mistake at work, we have to, we have to be accountable for it. And like, at least it's not just in our eyes, a nameless guy who's a robot who wears black and white stripes and makes some calls and goes home, and that's it. And like, if they say at the end of the game, like, yeah, that was on me. This is what I thought. I've had a chance to look back at it now, and I can see that I got it wrong. I think to the average fan, at least, like that would go a long way in humanizing them a little bit, and then maybe actually working in favor of the refs and taking a little bit of that heat off. But yeah, just in conclusion, like I just need to know what it is I'm watching it and what to expect from it. It's just like it's really frustrating watching this game for so long and still feeling like all these years later, I don't know what is a rule. So yeah.
That's well said. Let us know what you think below. I think it'd be nice to know what's going through, and hopefully they don't give textbook answers. And speaking of textbook answers, I'm going to get to something in a minute, but to give my reaction about the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals, to give my point. Florida, New York, I think that's going to be an intense series.
I think it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be very fight to the end. You got Tkachuk on one side, and obviously you got Trouba, who can hit people through the boards on the other side. It's going to be a battle.
He can hit himself through the boards.
Yeah, that too. That's good. Goaltending, what Bobrovsky are we going to see? Or what Shesterkin are we going to see? I think we're going to see the Shesterkin we have been seeing, right? It's going to be interesting defensively. I think there's an evenly matched here. I think there's different six guys that are on the ice, but they're evenly matched overall. Up front, same thing. I would have to give the edge almost in terms of talent to the New York Rangers a little bit, just with that goal scoring edge and that getting to the dirty areas and scoring. But as I say that, I think of Tkachuk, I think of Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett. This is just going to be one of those series where it's got to go 7, right? This has got to be a 7-game series, and it's going to go right to the end. And whoever wins this series is likely the favorite that might be winning the Stanley Cup. And it's going to be a hell of a series. If you want my prediction, I'm going to give it to you. I am going to say the Florida Panthers in 7. I'm going to say the Panthers are going back to the Cup Finals.
I'll say the Rangers in 6.
Ooh, like it. And here I am doubting the Rangers again. So
what are you saying for the Western Conference? Do you want me to go first?
Western Conference. Yeah. Do you want to go first? You can go first.
Yeah, Dallas in 5.
Yikes. Okay.
I just listed off 8 20-goal scorers in the regular season. One of those guys did it in 68 games, and the goaltending debate in Edmonton is between Stuart Skinner, who can't stop a beach ball, and a guy who just played his first playoff game.
Yeah, I'll just give my feedback about that series. I think Connor McDavid, they got to really task and shutting down McDavid. And what's scary is that the Vancouver Canucks didn't see the best Connor McDavid. And that's what I'm waiting to see, if that McDavid comes in this series. Because if that McDavid shows up, then Dallas is going to be in trouble, because that's just a hard guy to handle when he is on his game. And if him and Draisaitl are clicking on all cylinders in either line, Dallas is going to be in trouble, because Edmonton's third line can really put the puck in the net and threaten you. And I got to give credit to Edmonton's defense and offense here. Like, they shut down Vancouver. I know they didn't have Besser, they didn't have Demko. Would have been a different game and series, every way you want to look at it. But the Oilers outshot them 14-2 at one point. Like, the Edmonton Oilers PK has been impressive. The power play has been impressive. They've been a team to watch, but Dallas beat Vegas, the cheaters, right? You beat not the defending Stanley Cup champion, but a recent Stanley Cup champion in the Colorado Avalanche. This is a team that's on a wagon right now and riding some hard momentum. And I don't know if I've really had a hard time picking this winner. And I guess I can change my picks around, because the team that I thought was going to play Edmonton in the finals has been gone for a while. So I'm going to have to say that that this series will also go 7. We're going to see 2 Game 7 series this year. We're going to get the full fledge of round 3, and it's going to be the Dallas Stars going to the conference finals. I'll have to predict.
Just trying to be nice to everybody. Oh, yeah, everybody's doing great. Here's your participation ribbons. Everyone's going to make Game 7. No, I'm not going to say that. The Dallas Stars are going to spank Connor McDavid and his gang of misfits because they don't have the depth. They're a kiddie pool.
It's going to be the 20 goals thing has got me this entire show, Alex. That was good. That was a good statistic right there. I can't believe that was terrific.
I know what we're going to talk about next. So can I tell you an interesting stat about that before we dive into it?
Yeah.
It has been since the 1930s that a coach has won a Stanley Cup with 2 different teams. So if you sign a coach who has won a Stanley Cup, your statistical odds of winning one with him are almost 0.
As we get to that point, and Parr, I told you to have a hard stop at our 25 days, so we got 5 minutes. So we're gonna get to this point as much as we can. This is a little bit of older news, and we're gonna do our redraft before we wrap up the show. But the Maple Leafs have hired Greg Berube. Okay, so the new coaching day has been there's a new coach in Toronto, Greg Berube. Okay, I want to restart that. And I really like Parr's point because my point was going to be how many people have won a cup and went to another team and won a cup. And I was looking at Joel Quenneville today. I was looking at, you can think of Scotty Bowman was successful, but it's rare. Those are little called unicorns, as we like to call them in our business. And Greg Berube, when he was in his press conference today, I was watching the footage. And again, the answers, Parr. What was the word that you used when we discussed off air?
Oh, buzzwords. Bunch of bullshit.
Buzzwords. And I understand he's a hard-nosed coach. I understand he's different than Keefe was. Keefe had success in the regular season, not the playoffs. Didn't get the most out of the guys. This is a team, though, that if you want to bring that hard-nosed energy, are they going to flourish? Well, we're going to see, because if Berube is like how he talked, how he's going to make TP players be held accountable, how he's going to try to get the best out of them, how they're going to grind in 3 zones and they're going to finish their checks. Okay, I don't know if Mitch Marner turned off the TV after hearing that and said, okay, here's my 10-team list, right? Because what I heard in that press conference was everything I wanted to hear, but it's lights and flashback of what I heard from Mike Babcock. Sheldon Keefe didn't get to have that press conference that Babcock had. It was a little bit different because he was brought in mid-season, and then he just had the end of the year each time saying, we got to be better, we got to be better, we got to be better, and nothing ever happened. I've heard this song and dance. I've danced this song and dance. I believed this before, and I'm not going to believe it until I fucking see it. Berube, I love the hire. Great hire. Want my opinion on that? Great. I wanted Quenneville, but I understand the media storm with that, so let's erase that. Berube was a good choice, given who's available and given his history. I think it's going to be a good coach.
Given who's available is right. I mean,
yeah, and honestly, will he lead them to the cup? I'm not saying he is, and I'm not going to say he isn't. I'm not here to talk about what he can and cannot do, but to get the best of these guys, he has a project. My point of saying what I am right now is that I've heard this song before on repeat, and I had enough of this bullshit of being fed bullshit in typical Toronto land, the self-proclaimed hockey mecca of the world, being fed bullshit, and we don't get results. So, yay, he got hired. I love the hire. Now let's see you do something about it. Parr, before we get to the redraft.
Yeah, hockey mecca. The only M word associated with Toronto and hockey is mediocre. Or Marlies, I guess, but mediocre.
They've won recently. Well, within the last 10.
Who cares? Who cares? Who cares?
So your thoughts about Berube? Good hire? Are you interested in it at all? Is it going to make change?
I don't know. Maybe.
Spoken like a Leaf fan right now.
I just like, I don't know.
Over-itness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Over-itness.
You know when I'll have an answer for you? May next year.
Okay, we'll table that for May next year.
Mm-hmm.
Berube is a new Leafs head coach. Let us know what you think. His assistant coaches might get round out. I'm hearing a lot about Mark Savard going one way. That's all I know out of people that I've connected with. The rest, who knows, will round out. I'm sure he'll get to make his own staff. And Berube is a very hard-nosed coach. We will see if he gets that out of his players and how the rest of this offseason goes for the Leafs, but also Canadian teams and all the teams in the NHL. I'm actually pretty excited about this offseason, but I don't want to get my hopes up because, I'm just saying that because not only just because of Toronto, but in the NHL, I want to see I want to see some news, some big names move this year. I want to see some free agents go to different places we wouldn't have thought. Give us some new storylines. Gives us a lot to talk about here on the game. Alex, NHL Re-Draft time. To remind listeners what this is, Alex and I draft the top 5 of the year that we're talking about. We redraft it for you based on what we know today about those players. Recently, we did 1989. And I called it the games version. If you know, you know. 1989, Taylor Swift. I just told you. Yeah, there it is. Now we're catering to the audience. Hey, some people just got mad. But we're doing 1990. That is the start of the 90s decade.
Did you say some people are mad? Would you say they're seeing red?
Oh, hot damn. Love it. Oh, even more. Hit that follow, hit that like, hit that subscribe, especially if you love Taylor Swift.
Do it for T Swift. Yeah, I'm sure the demographics of your show and Taylor Swift really cross over.
Same thing. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. We talk Taylor Swift, they talk about my podcast. Same thing. No, actually, they're talking about Travis Kelce's podcast. Redraft. Parr, you choose who goes first and who goes second.
I'll go first, and I'll draft from 5 to 1 because this is a top-heavy draft, to say the least.
Go ahead.
Number 5, Daryl Sador. Lots of games played as a defenseman. Number 4, 500 goal scorer, Peter Bondra. Number 3, also a 500 goal scorer, Keith Tkachuk. But now this is where the heavyweights match up, and I almost switched them. But Marty Brodeur, you're sitting in slot number 2, pal, because you won't be able to top the longevity and the point-scoring totals of Jaromir Jagr.
Oh, we do have different picks.
You went Brodeur 1.
I'm excited about this. I think this is good because even the bottom's different. I was thinking of some people I left out that aren't going to agree, and I'm glad you went with them. It's going from 5 and up to 1 as well. The Pittsburgh Penguins are proud to select 5th overall, Owen Nolan. Mm-hmm. With the 4th overall pick, the Philadelphia Flyers are proud to select LSSU alumni Doug Weight. The Detroit Red Wings, with the 3rd overall pick, are proud to select Keith Tkachuk. With the 2nd overall pick, the Vancouver Canucks are proud to select Jaromir Jagr.
That's crazy.
And with the 1st overall pick, the Quebec Nordiques select Martin Brodeur. Goaltender, baby. The guy wins.
Jagr's got cups.
He does. And longevity.
Yeah, Brodeur played in the dead puck era.
Imagine Martin Brodeur playing in Quebec. Think about that.
Yeah, you're doing it for the story. I didn't even see who.
No, not the story, but I just thought of that. That's just thought of that. Imagine Jagr in Vancouver with Pavel Bure back in the day. Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, you would have been able to play with the Sedin twins as well.
Oh, then Vancouver.
I can't believe you took.
Vancouver has a couple that happens.
I can't believe you took Doug Weight over fucking Peter Bondra.
And Daryl Sador. And I had those guys. Like if I had to go 6 and 7, I would have Bondra 6, Sador 7. If people want to know that.
Yeah, Weight and Nolan would be my 6, 7, 2. But like Doug Weight, 1,000 points, but 755 assists.
You know who's one of my favorite players on that list, and he wouldn't be in the top picks, but it's Darian Hatcher.
I was gonna say Chris Simon.
Oh, R.I.P. Love that. Love that. Good draft. Good fun draft there. Darian Hatcher with the absolute mullet from the top ropes. My goodness. Look at that picture on Hockey DB. Oh, my Lanta. You don't want to see that guy running down after you. That's a big mullet coming for you. Nonetheless, Alex, we're a little bit over. I told you a hard stop. We're getting to that hard stop right now. And the second part of the show, you're going to have me for just about 5 minutes before we have Connor Henderson come on. As I mentioned, what we have in the opener before Connor joins us for some strike zone content. But here on the top shelf content, we like to call it here on the Game Sports Podcast. Alex Parr and I giving you all things hockey.
1 second. You know who else went in that draft?
Who?
Wes McCauley.
Worst ref.
I should have taken him number 1.
Oh, worst ref. If I had to draft worst refs, he'd be number 1 overall. My goodness.
Okay, I'll let you wrap it up. I'm sorry. I just needed to throw that in there.
Alex, thank you for taking the time, my friend.
Of course. It was a blast as always. I'm glad our drafts were a little bit different this time, too.
Yeah, and I'd love to know people's reaction to it. Next up, 1991. You know what's a good time about 1991? It's when I was born. Just so everyone throw
I
that
was
out there.
waiting for another Taylor Swift reference, but I just didn't know it.
No, I don't know if there is anything for that. We'll have to figure that out. I'll see if I find some. But nonetheless, I'm going to have Alex sign off, and then I'm going to do 5 minutes with myself here, talking a little bit of basketball.
What does that mean?
5 minutes of basketball talk or
Oh.
so with Dave. Let's see where this goes. We'll be right back here on The Game. Welcome back to the Game Sports Podcast. Dave McCaig continuing to host you this evening. Thanks again to Alex Parr for joining yours truly, talking in our top shelf segment of the Game Sports Podcast, all things hockey. Let us know what you think about our redraft segment, as well as who you think is going to win the Eastern Conference and Western Conference final. Here in this second segment, it's going to be very brief. Yes, me saying brief, but it is going to be very descriptive and give you some great content in the world of basketball. Yes, it's going to be just yours truly talking about basketball, because there's one point in particular that I want to talk about the most. But I am going to give you a quick update about the NBA playoffs. And if you listen to a recent clip, if you go on TikTok, if you go on Instagram, any of the socials, or check out our recent podcast here on The Game, I did discuss how I thought Oklahoma City Thunder was going to be the next dynasty and was going to be the champions this year. So I will say that I was incorrect on that. Okay. I'm a big fan of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It would be amazing to see him in the Raptors colors, obviously, but he is on the Thunder. He is one of the best in the NBA, and that roster in Oklahoma City is shaping up to be quite exciting. And I'm very surprised that they lost, not just in terms of who they lost to. Obviously, the Mavs are a very good team. But what I want to discuss is obviously the series that are going on now. And despite that, I thought Oklahoma City was going to be there this year, and I thought they were going to win multiple titles, but I guess they're going to have to wait until next year probably to win their first one. But the Mavs obviously defeated Oklahoma City, and then the Timberwolves defeated the Nuggets. And Ant-Man just looking fantastic with the Timberwolves, man. That team has come a long way. I can remember when you had guys like Karl Anthony Towns and these guys that were looking at Minnesota for not being a destination to go play basketball because this team couldn't right the ship. And boy, did they right the ship over there in Minnesota. The Timberwolves are like this great story in the NBA playoffs this year, but I think they're in a very tough matchup against the Mavericks. And let me give you a reason why. The Mavericks defeated the Thunder. That's one of my reasons. The also, obviously, with having, Kyrie and Luka, this is a team that is well put together there in Dallas. And I feel that the team with Dallas and Minnesota, that you have two teams that are equally matched, but with Luka just sets apart from everybody else. Luka, Kyrie, that chemistry is very, very real. The roster of Dallas, I like that makeup still a little bit more than Minnesota. But Minnesota, you got to be proud of what you've done this year in general in the regular season and the playoffs. You've shown that you are the real deal, that you can get it done, and you're going to be a team that could make a run for years and years against these guys like the Oklahoma City Thunder as they continue to grow and mature. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'd be very surprised if they weren't back into the same position next year as they were this year, but I think this is where the story stops. The Mavericks, I really thought the Timberwolves was a team I was going to pick here, but I'm going to have to go with the Mavericks defeating the Timberwolves. And yeah, it's not just because they beat Oklahoma City Thunder, the Mavericks, but when you look at Luka and you look at Kyrie, and like I said, this team makeup, it's hard to turn away from it despite the success. But look at what Anthony Edwards and look what the Minnesota Timberwolves have done in their process to where they're at now in the conference finals. It is amazing, and you can't discredit it. So would I be surprised if they beat the Mavericks? No, but I find it very hard for the Mavericks and not seeing them in the finals. But again, big tangle, big matchup here, and it's going to be something that is going to be looked at as one of those series that I think is going to be the more exciting series between the two that are going on, which leads me to the Eastern Conference final between the Indiana Pacers and the Boston Celtics. I did predict Boston making the finals this year. I will say that in my clip. Obviously, it wasn't correct on it, but this is a Boston team that's been hot all year. They're well put together. Indiana battled back against the Knicks to come back and win that series. I feel so bad for Knicks fans. I was really pulling for the Knicks Knicks to win that series, but it all ends if it was the Knicks here or now that it's the Pacers. This is the Boston Celtics, and the Boston Celtics, I think, are going to make pretty quick work on the Indiana Pacers by Halliburton and what that team can do. I'm going to predict the Celtics in 5, and going to the Wolves and to the Mavericks, I think that series is going to go 6. I think the Wolves will push them to 6, but you're going to see a Celtics-Mavericks final. And the storylines for this playoffs, yes, Oklahoma City Thunder not making it, but the Indiana Pacers coming back to defeat the Knicks, great storyline there. The Timberwolves, Ant-Man in the storyline there, you cannot look away from that. And you look at this team that the Boston Celtics have been flooring. What a great story that is. This is a roster that is fit to be a championship team. And I will not give you the prediction of the finals just yet, but you got to be silly to not think that the Celtics are the favorite out of the 4 to walk away as NBA champions. What is your thoughts about who is going to win these 2 final series in the Final Four before we see the NBA Finals, and what 2 teams will that make you see in the finals? And try not to be biased. Okay, I'm not trying to be biased. If you want who I wish would be there, I would love to see a Timberwolves and Indiana Pacers final. That would be unexpected. The 2 underdogs from each series, but let's be real. The closest series is the Mavs-Timberwolves series. I just can't see the Pacers getting past the Celtics. I just don't see it. The Mavs and the Timberwolves, you got 2 teams there that are going to make it interesting, and you can't discredit what the Timberwolves have done, but you can't pull against the Mavericks right now, in my honest opinion. Great up and down the court. They hit those clutch shots. Again, a team that has been able to rise to the occasion. Dallas. Boston, look at their roster. Okay, that's all. That's all I need to say. Boston, Indiana, Dallas, Minnesota. Who do you got? Let me know. It begins actually tonight, the day of recording here, May the 21st. Now, I'm going to get to one point I want to bring up and saying I'm already a minute 26 over. My goodness. I better hurry up and get to my point. I wanted to discuss about Bronny James for a moment. As I sit here, I want to take a quick sip of my pint. And the reason why I want to talk about Bronny James is because the hype around this kid is because he is LeBron's kid, and he is a very good basketball player. And if you look at recent reports, NBA executives have discussed the possibility of taking Bronny in the first round to try to lure LeBron James to that team. And there's been a lot of teams. That list is long. It's 10 plus teams. Obviously, being on the Canadian side of the border, we have seen discussions that the Raptors have done their due diligence. Teams have done their due diligence. Look, as a Raptors fan, outside of being a host of this podcast, I would love to see Bronny and LeBron in the Raptors jersey and that storyline in Toronto and them be a good team next year and have such a good story. Okay, but I have a very hard time seeing LeBron leave the Lakers. There's still a lot of involvement he has with the team. He said he's not involved in the coach search. He's obviously everything to do with Kobe Bryant. There's a lot of emotional tie in there. He's won with the Lakers. I really feel like him leaving the Lakers is not what he wants to do. But the reason why he hasn't re-signed in LA is honestly, I think, because of Bronny James. And wouldn't it be a story that the Cleveland Cavaliers found a way to draft Bronny James, and the Cleveland Cavaliers brought back LeBron James? Who knows about Donovan Mitchell? Obviously, you got the Rockets knocking on that door now, and the story's coming out. But, if Bronny James and LeBron go there, I don't think anyone's going to be leaving. Does LeBron take a pay cut to go to Cleveland so they can afford him and play with his son, play in LeBron's home, and get him started and start the new James era in Cleveland? Wouldn't that be such a good story? Or does Bronny find a way to land himself on the Lakers because Daddy-O does a little bit of a trick to find a way to get him, which I'm sure would lead to an investigation of some sort. But the storylines are endless here. And my big thing is, do you truly want to waste a pick on Bronny James? Because there's 2 perspectives. One, yes, you can try to lure LeBron James to come play for you, and you hope that works. But what if it doesn't? You might have wasted a first-round pick who Bronny is a second rounder. So in the second round, I think you can toss those around a bit more lightly in the NBA. The first round, I think you should do your due diligence and choose the right player. So you take that risk. Or are you going to be smart and just let Bronny go by and just make the pick that is best for your team? let's say I'm a team that's looking to draft Bronny. If I'm looking to draft Bronny, I'm asking the Lakers permission to talk to LeBron James, and I'm going to say, look, I'm looking at picking Bronny tonight in the first round. If he falls to me at 20 blah, if I see him there, he is going to be a blah. Let's say that it's let's say it's the Indiana Pacers. Let's say that they traded up in the first round and they make a move as such. And looking at the NBA draft order as I pull it up to confirm right now, from picks 1 to 58 as per NBA.com, you got, I'll use an exact example. You got the Lakers that are picking, who are down right now at 17, but you have Toronto who's drafting 19 from Indiana. You got Cleveland drafting 20. You got New Orleans 21 to Phoenix 22. Let's look at all this, okay? Let's say you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, for the sake of my example. 20th overall pick. You call and you say, look, we're going to draft. If Bronny's there at 20, we're drafting him. No matter what, we are drafting him. LeBron, are you open to come home? LeBron would be like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm game to come home. And maybe he signs there in Cleveland. Okay, then you draft Bronny. But if he says, no, I'm not. Okay, well, that's fine. That's totally fine. Then you can make the decision if you truly want to draft him or not. But I think if you really do want to draft him, if he was a first rounder, draft him. If you feel like it's going to make a difference for your team, draft him. Who cares about what LeBron does? If LeBron comes to you or not, cool. If he does come to you, that adds to make your team better. Great. If not, who cares? You develop Bronny. You have the bloodline of LeBron James there. Somebody you can make a project and make a vital piece on your floor. Maybe it could be a future top 6-man in the league. Maybe he is a starter in the league. I don't know where I see Bronny landing. The talent is definitely there. But if I'm truly looking to draft Bronny because I want LeBron James, I'm doing my due diligence to say, hey, I'm drafting your son. Are you going to come here? And you got to take the chance of him lying to you to say, yes, I will come there or not. And if you draft him, he doesn't come, so be it. Maybe you can take the hit. But do your due diligence if possible. But I think if you're going to tell LeBron you're drafting him, you should just draft him and call his bluff. If he doesn't come, cool. LeBron could play against his son opposed to with him, but he has said he wants to play with him, and that would be a cool connection to have him play with his son. So I will take the odds that if his son does go somewhere, he will join them, but it does depend on the team. I will tell you right now, if the Washington Wizards draft him, I don't think LeBron's going to the Washington Wizards. I'm sorry to Washington fans, but I do not see him going there. If Toronto drafts him, I don't even know if I see him going there. But if Cleveland drafts him, if the Lakers draft him, Miami drafts him, the Philadelphia 76ers or New York drafts him, okay, I can see that done. A team that is good roster, good fan base, especially in New York, maybe that's where he will go. But I'm going to tell you right now, I think we're going to notice something that is going to be not, I don't mean fixed, but if Bronny's there at the 55th pick for the Los Angeles Lakers, you know that he's taking him, and LeBron will re-sign in LA. That is my prediction. Bronny goes 55 to LA, and LeBron stays in LA. If you want my hopeful pick, I'm hopeful that he goes number 20 in the first round to Cleveland, and Bronny is drafted by Cleveland, and LeBron goes back home to finish his final season. That's what I hope. What would be a cool storyline? There's two. The Toronto Raptors getting him. I think that'd be a great storyline. But I think another storyline would be him on the Knicks. I would love to see that storyline too. So there's the four hopefuls. My highlighted one is Cleveland, but the one that I think is that you'll see LeBron re-sign in LA, and that's where Bronny will go. Let me know where you think Bronny is going to go. Is he truly good enough to be playing in the NBA? Will he true enough to go in the top round or in the NBA draft? Would you have a pick on Bronny? If you did, what is your reasoning for drafting Bronny? I would be interested to know. Going to be interesting when that draft comes to light. The first overall pick, the Atlanta Hawks. Is it going to be traded? Some good players you can pick out of there. And I know some people that would definitely want to move up in that draft. Look at San Antonio, 4-8. There's some movement there that Atlanta can definitely take advantage of. And I think San Antonio's got to be on the forefront of those trades to try to move up to get some support for Wemby. I'm going to take a quick break. Connor's waiting in the wings. I'm going to change my shirt for that too as well. and we're going to be talking a little bit of baseball here on the Game Sports Podcast. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to the Game Sports Podcast. It is David McCaig continuing to host you this evening. I am joined by the one, the only, every time I say this, the Rookie of the Year, and he's not related to Connor Henderson, Connor Henderson, the Rookie of the Year. And like I said, if you know, you know. Connor, my friend, how's it going?
Doing good, Dave. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, man. You know, honestly, if you're a fan of Toronto sports, maybe things are not going as good as you'd like, but overall, the summer is near, officially in the weather here in Sault Ste. Marie. Everything is transitioning towards the summer sports, if you will, and we know baseball is on the front of that, which means that Strike Zone is going to have more of its usual, well, more kind of repetitive content that you'll see, or it's weekly content, hopefully, or bi-weekly, depending on our schedule. But Connor, I'm doing well, my friend. Things are keeping busy. Is everything good on your end? I know schooling is finishing up. You're looking towards the summer, right? I'm hoping you're getting some time to relax.
Yeah, no, we're cruising into the summer. Windsor is scorching hot this time of the year. I think it's like 25 outside right now, so
Nice.
We're definitely soaking that in. And I've snuck over the border to see a couple Tigers games, which hopefully we can get into later in the show.
Hop and a skip is that. Now, speaking of that, Connor, it was recently your birthday, my friend. It was your birthday. The day that we're recording this, like I talked earlier in the show, Connor and I are pre-recording this on Victoria Day, which, if you know, you know again, because the Strike Zone segment likes to do its shows on holidays for the most part. Jokes aside, it was your birthday, Connor, recently. So happy birthday, my friend. I'd like to say happy 20th as a joke, but we're not in our, well, you not me. I'm not in my 20s anymore, and you didn't just turn 20. But I hope you had a good birthday too. Hopefully, you maybe had some couple beverages, or maybe you did some. I know your plans go into today even. So hopefully, your birthday's been good.
No, it's been a full weekend. We've culminated with watching The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes that just came out, and my girlfriend and I went on a huge apes bender, watching like all 9 movies of the franchise in the last 2 weeks. So. I'm excited to talk about sports because I've been exclusively talking about apes, and I have a newfound respect for orangutans, but I wish, if anything, I could have a newfound respect for the Jays because they've been struggling, and I think you wanted to touch on that.
Oh, I did. And we're going to save the Jays for the end. I think that would be great. I might have a few words. I know everyone likes when I got a few words about the teams that I cheer for outside of being a host. We got some things to get into, Connor. And the first thing that we're just going to go right off the bat and get into quickly, because we didn't get a chance to in our previous segment because of just time. And Shohei Ohtani. Okay, look. Why are we bringing up Shohei again? I'm going to keep it very brief. Like I said, and Connor will add his point. I want to just keep it very brief, like I said. Obviously, his translator, a little bit of an issue there with gambling, apparently. And, there's been investigations. There's been charges down there. It's a situation that's been going on for months. I'm not going to get into the full details of it. You know what it is already as listeners and viewers. I don't need to read it to you, okay? I don't need you to skip through this segment. I want you to listen to everything we have. So the only thing I want to say is that there is no chance, zero chance, that Shohei did not know about this money being taken from his bank account. Look, I'm the average Joe, okay? I work my Monday to Friday job from 8 to 8:30 to 4:30, 9 to 5, whatever time you want to say, because I'm all over the map with it. And then I come in and do this podcast, okay? And my income and what puts food on the table is my full-time job, okay? And when I'm paying my bills, I know I got to look and see where things are going. Okay, I got to pay stuff. Shohei Ohtani is a human being. He's got to pay bills. I'm sure he's got a car. He has a wife. He has a family. If I remember, I'm not going to quote everything, but he has that living. He has a house. Okay, he's got not PUC down there. I think we have PUC is what it's called here in Sault Ste. Marie. I don't think it's called PUC down there. But they have bills that they have to pay. Okay, now he might have accountants who pay things for him a little bit, but you telling me that Shohei Ohtani does not go into his phone, okay, and search his bank once in a while? Like, is he that rich to know that, like, oh, I'm missing $14 million? Are you kidding me right now, Connor? This guy knew things were happening, and his translator's taking the fall. Probably a little hush-hush on the side. You don't need to comment on that, Connor, if you don't want to, but maybe a little hush-hush on the bottom, sweeping under the little rug there, a little extra money. Hey, just plead guilty, go into the sunset, and go live your life somewhere else, okay? Shohei knew money was coming out, Connor.
Man, Dave, he is another level of locked in right now. If you look, Shohei Ohtani is doing everything in his power to swing the narrative as far away. This guy's batting .350. He's got 13 bombs. He's at a 3 WAR, like a quarter of the way through the season. He is He is on another level trying to swing the narrative as far away as possible from this scandal, and good for him.
Put this guy, like, when I first heard this, I'm like, oh my God, Shohei's going to get suspended. Oh, here we go. Like, let's go. No, that's not that. I am a fool for thinking that was going to happen, right? I am such a fool, Connor. But I would like to know other people's take on it. I just didn't want to spend too much time on it, but I only wanted to comment that there's no way he didn't know money was coming out, dude. There's no chance. There's no chance. No chance. But, man, like, I live the average life. Like I said, Connor, I know where my money goes, okay? I don't have – what's he have? His bank account, I think he's worth a lot. I think he's got almost 100+ million.
I think he's doing okay with himself.
Yeah, for sure. There's no way he doesn't know that there's – maybe I'm wrong. I'm not that level of income. So maybe if I ever got that level of income, you can ask me that question again. Connor, you have another thing you wanted to bring up with Paul Skenes. This guy, I want to say, is a stud. First overall pick. We knew when he got drafted first overall. It was a good draft last year in the top echelons of the picks. I actually like the last recent first overall picks and top picks overall too, but Jackson Holiday, I'm a fan of Jackson Holiday. The Orioles, the Orioles. I can't. The rich get richer, eh? They got some studs on that team. We've talked about the Orioles on this podcast a good chunk. But Paul Skenes, the kid is throwing. He had 6 consecutive strikeouts in a game. The kid is dealing. He throws 103, 102 miles per hour on a fastball. You can't even blink without you can't see that ball, Connor. And obviously he's been all over TikTok as well because of his girlfriend that people know.
Man, Paul Skenes is winning right now, Dave. He's feeling real good. So goes first overall. He used to pitch at Air Force, I believe, before he moved to LSU. Him and his friend Dylan Cruz went 1 and 2 overall together back to back. And Paul Skenes, for context, like everybody knows, he's throwing triple digits, right? Which is hard stuff. He's got this funky sort of 3/4, almost looks sidearm sort of delivery, and then it also allows for some nasty break on his slider as well, sort of as that 1-2 punch. To put into context how insanely good his strikeout numbers are, if you strike out 1 batter per inning, you're probably a top 30 strikeout pitcher in the major leagues. That means your strikeouts per 9 is about 9.0, which means, for every 9 innings, you get 1 strikeout for each of the 9. Paul Skenes is almost double that. He, right now, the league leaders in strikeouts per 9 are hovering at around 12. It's like Jack Flaherty of the Tigers, and there's one other guy.
Flaherty was a good pickup, by the way. Sorry, man, keep it on Skenes.
It's looking good. Skenes right now, through 10 innings of Major League Baseball, has 18 strikeouts, which is like, those are the sorts of numbers that you'd see like in Little League when you have like a pro prospect just come through and just start mowing people down. And he was doing it in AAA, but there's a huge gap between AAA and the pros. And we see this all of the time, especially with other draftees of that exact same draft class. Like if you look at the 4th overall pick in the Skenes draft, Wyatt Langford, that guy was batting like
Texas,
370 in the minor leagues with power, and he goes up to the majors this year. He makes opening day roster out of camp, and he's batting like 200 with like 1 home run. The gap between AAA and the majors is pretty big, even for the top prospects. For Skenes to go from AAA, where he's mowing people down, mustache and all, and then to go straight into the majors, and he's killing it there too. And his girlfriend's got 5 million. I knew she existed, I think, before him, and I barely used to.
They were dating until she did the upload, and it came up on the For You page for the podcast page because it's sports related, right? So it came up the algorithm, and there she is getting ready for my boyfriend's game. Go Pirates! And there's a background, some stud with a mustache, tall, and I'm like, I know who that guy is. Yeah. And like you said, the guy got pulled against the Cubs a couple days ago from this recording. 6 no-hit innings. Second start. Listen, I know there's storylines. People come in and they have good first starts and they do what they need. But this kid, I know he's a couple starts in. You don't want to hype him up too much, but you got to give credit where it's due, especially now. He looks like the real deal, and he's looking good doing it in the process.
Yeah, you literally cannot ask for better results at this stage. It's not like the hype is earned. It is completely earned because he's doing exactly what he did in the minors, and he's doing exactly what he did in college, and he's doing it with pizzazz and with firepower. And there's no reason to believe that he's going to slow down anytime soon.
There's no way he's going to slow down. You hope not. I kind of like seeing a good young guy come up and keep it going, right? You had some of that hope with Mackenzie Gore, right? You like maybe not. It's not the same. Obviously, it's not the same hype. But you had some of these young guys come up who are still trying to find that consistency in their game, and to come in early in his career and each level dominate, right? And he's been consistent. You brought up a good point about Wyatt Langford. I like to use Addison Barger as an example too with the Jays. The guy's been mashing balls in AAA ball, mashing, and the guy comes up and he struggled to get his first hit after his first 10 at bats, right? I think, is it harder for a pitcher than it is for, I mean, this is a good question for you. Is it an easier transition from AAA to MLB for a pitcher than it is a hitter? Or should it be easier for a hitter than it is for a pitcher?
Oh, I think it's easier for pitchers. Okay. And I'm strongly in that camp. I think that with pitching, you just control so much more. You're the one attacking, and the batter is essentially defending. And with the advanced stats now, I mean, people know the hitter's weaknesses so much, and then just by design, hitting is a medium that fails more than it succeeds, which is harder to deal with from a psychological perspective than a pitcher who, okay, maybe you got like a 4 or 5 ERA, not great, but you're getting out batters. There's tangible results, but as a hitter, you come up to the majors and you're, for the first time in your life, you're batting 200 when all you've ever done is bat way above that. It eats at you.
It does. See now, and I like seeing it. And before we transition to the next point, the Pirates, right? This is a team that's been dog shit, Connor. I'm just gonna say how it is. They have been, right? This organization has not been successful for a while. They haven't won a World Series, I believe, since it was 1979. It's the last time they won the World Series. They won 5 times in their. I know I remember hearing that on TV 5 times that they've won in their franchise history. And 79 is not too long ago. Don't get me wrong, especially if you're a Toronto sports fan that cheers hockey. That's not that long. I think you would take 79 over 67. But again, that's a passionate fan base there in Pittsburgh, and they got a very beautiful ball field. I would love to see it one day. And I always had this thing for the teams that don't do well, right? The Padres. I've had it for the Cubs when they didn't win for 100 years because I can relate. So speaking of that, I like seeing the names that are coming up, the Skenes, and I like O'Neal Cruz. I think the guy's an absolute beast. I love big ball players, big that have power. I love that. But Skenes is something special, and the Pirates fans should be enjoying this because this is going to be a ride that we're going to see, and I hope it doesn't turn out to be one of those little flukes where he has 1 year, then he has a sophomore struggle or struggles after that, like another Blue Jay pitcher who's had that recently. It's a good storyline here, and it's great. And his girlfriend, Olivia Dunn, having how many millions of followers and following along, it's been good content all around for Mr. Skenes, and the kid's a stud.
He's doing well.
I know you have a story about the Tigers, and we have a story about another ball player that I kind of want you to share quickly, given time. Mason Miller.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay, so this guy, if there's anybody who's like right underneath Skenes in terms of like the narrative of just being a really cool fireballer, young guy coming up, it's Mason Miller of the Oakland Athletics. A lot of people have compared him to Charlie Sheen's character Wild Thing in the movie Major League. It's a comedy movie where you've got this team where the owner just wants them to suck so that they can move the franchise, but in comes this flame-throwing fireballer out of nowhere who's carving up the league. So Mason Miller, for those of you who don't know, was a D3 baseball player coming out of high school. He threw in the 80s. Upper 80s back then, and he was like a skinny, tall, thin frame, couldn't keep the velo up late into games, and he goes like Div 3, and like Div 3 is not high baseball, and his ERA was like 7 for his first for his freshman and sophomore years in Div 3. Not great.
Nope.
He goes for like blood work and essentially finds out that he's got diabetes. And once they get him on proper sort of like regimen, health wise, he's able to put on weight, put on mass, maintain his frame. And suddenly he's throwing in the 90s. He transfers over to Div 1, and sure enough, he ends up getting drafted and carves his way into the A's closer position, because he's throwing 101, 102, 101, 102, just like pure gasoline. But it's the trajectory that's so insane. Like Div 3 baseball is like I've got pals who could easily have played Div 3 baseball, and you know what I mean. Like it's not
you could have, if not higher. Don't be modest. You could have too.
there's definitely some schools in Michigan where that would have been for sure a thing if you wanted to pay an arm and a leg for out of state costs. Sure, but
grand a semester, frig.
No, thank you. You can get it's not the best situation, but like so the gap and the trajectory for this guy is so cool. And to see these flamethrowers, he initially was a starter, but now they've moved him into the bullpen after he had a strain in his arm, and maybe that's the best spot for him. Unlike Paul Skenes, who is a starter who flamethrows the entire game, Miller does have that history of running low on velo like later into starts, due in part to his health. The closer role seems to be the best for him, and it's really, really cool to see triple digits being much more common in the MLB now. Hopefully he stays healthy and keeps this going, because it's the one bright spot in a pretty dark Oakland situation.
Yeah, you know what, honestly, I hope I don't see any of this Tommy John word getting thrown around to either of those guys. That's the one thing you don't want to see. You do see it, Casey Mize, right? The Detroit has seen it. Right? There's been some of these young studs that have come up. And if I'm Oakland, before we transition to the bobblehead stuff, okay, if I'm Oakland, look, you're not going to be in Oakland long. You're going to Vegas, despite approval, whatever. You're going to be moving. You get no fans, okay? You got no support. You're moving. People that are a part of this team, you can still get a job in Vegas. If you're the manager, if you're whatnot, they'll take you if you're doing okay. Build the prospect pool, draft good, spend the last money on resources, on drafting right, and getting these guys like the Mason Millers, getting the Muncys that they've drafted, Soderstroms, the guys that they have. Get those young talent, really build, because then Oakland, they will benefit before they move to Vegas. Maybe the last couple of years before they move, they'll have a little bit of that excitement. Maybe they'll have a little young team that's going to grind and maybe hit a wild card spot in the next couple of years. Doesn't seem like it, but just spend the resources on drafting and trying to build a competitive team to make it enjoyable in Oakland before you move on. I got to say that I'd love to see a young team get built and transition for them, and they should focus on that. Now, bobblehead story, because we've got 2 more points. I know we're hitting our time. I'm showing something on the video right now. If you're on audio, I'll explain it. It's my Bobblehead bobblehead. Okay, my wife and father-in-law and that side of the family went to a Jays game, and they got the Bobblehead bobblehead. I said I wanted one, and I wanted one for the office. Now, the only thing that's hanging in my thing is the Death Star, which has nothing to do with a bobblehead, and jerseys. I wanted to have this bobblehead somewhere. I don't know where I wanted to put it. But the reason why I'm bringing up a bobblehead story is because Connor and I were talking about this off air, and how we have Bo Bichette now with his real hair. Just kidding, no, it's not real. Sitting beside me at every episode right now. I have him staring at me, critiquing me as I talk, which I'll be critiquing him shortly. And I have Connor brought up a good story about one of the announcers he had that he had the chance to listen to throughout his life, but also you went to a ball game with your dad. So share that story. I think it's a great story.
Yeah, this is cute. I'll keep it short. So growing up, we had to drive through Michigan a lot for baseball. Me and my dad, he was my coach, and we would listen to the Tigers on the radio all the time. And their announcers were Dan Dickerson and Jim Price. Dan Dickerson's been the longtime announcer for now 25 years. And to celebrate his 25th season with the Tigers, they did a Dan Dickerson bobblehead night. So for those of you who can see on camera, got a little Dan Dickerson. It's really cute. I really wanted to see this, so my dad and I planned a trip where we went to see the Tigers play so that we could be one of the first 15,000 fans to get a bobblehead. And we showed up to the stadium so early because I was like hell-bent on getting these bobbleheads. And I was like scouting like outside the gate, like at Comerica Park. Like I could see the boxes right by security, like oh, these are mine. and they start letting in these like VIP Tigers holders, which I didn't know were a thing. And I was like sweating buckets, like baking in the sun, like, oh my God, if they run out, I'm going to lose my mind. There was tons by the time I got in there, and we got ours, and it was cute. But now I've got my little Dan Dickerson here, and it even has like audio where it can.
Oh, there we go. You got the audio? I don't got that. Oh,
So it's yeah,
Tigers got better bobbleheads.
Very cute stuff. But there's my bobblehead story.
And I love Comerica. Speaking of the Tigers, I always think I love Comerica.
It's a cool stadium.
Now to wrap up the show, I was kind of just gonna do my thumbs up and down and kind of transition that. Now, obviously, teams are hot. You can still early in the season. Divisions are all over. Obviously, if you have to give a little bit of love to a team, I give it to everybody except the Dodgers. Anybody except the Dodgers. Obviously, the AL East is living up to its expectation of being a very steep division with teams and competitiveness to a degree. Obviously, the top two teams have pulled themselves away a little bit. And if you're sitting at the bottom of the standings, which there is a team sitting at the bottom of the standings, you're sitting 11 and a half games back already. It's a little bit challenging in the world of baseball, Connor, to battle back in tight divisions like that. The Tigers, 500 baseball right now. The Rangers, 500 baseball. The Astros, under 500. I love that so much. The Mets under 500. There's another team not meeting expectations. The Marlins are trash. The Brewers like it. Pirates under 500 but exceeding expectations in my mind. The Reds not meeting expectations. Absolutely not. And I really would say the Diamondbacks, again, the team that made the World Series last year, not meeting expectations. Have to make some good moves this offseason. The Padres, I always got a little funny feeling for those Padres, right? But they're where they always are, behind the Dodgers. So the season this year has been kind of expected at some storylines, not expected, plus some good narratives like we've already talked about in the show. But since we're in the sake of time right now, and I can't go through any of those thumbs up or down, the Toronto Blue Jays. Look, I know everyone likes when Connor talks about the Tigers and I talk about the Blue Jays. Now, given time, it is just going to be the Blue Jays very briefly, and I'm going to try to keep this short. There's one thing, Connor, and I would like your quick point on this after, I've realized and seen over in the sports of Toronto, okay? I told you this off air, and speaking referencing another sport here, Toronto Maple Leafs, I've stopped having that expectation or that care. I have that passionate fan feeling, but ever since they lost to the Habs in 2021, that's been a change in how I feel about playoffs and when they lose. I'm not throwing my jersey, not that I ever did, but I mean, I'm not angry. It's like, oh, it happened. We're settling for being disappointed, right? And that's the unfortunate thing. When it comes to the Jays, they had all this excitement coming 2018, 2017, right? You got Bo, you got Vlad, you signed Springer, which seemed like a good move at that point. And Connor reminded me a couple of years ago, I challenged Springer to run down the first baseline because he had some fatigue in his leg, whatever he had fatigue. And look, Connor has seen me run. I can tell you one thing. I know I can outrun Kirk. Connor will agree to that. I can definitely outrun Kirk. Can I outrun Springer? I'd love to challenge him. Look, this guy on the field seems like a great guy in person in that clubhouse. Don't get me wrong. Seems like a good clubhouse guy, nice guy, but the guy is playing like absolute trash. When you're getting paid $25 million and you can't live up to that contract, he hasn't been a same George Springer, but he has been healthy at least. He's been playing baseball, okay, which is one thing that was worrisome when he signed, but he's not meeting expectations. When it comes to the management, I think a lot of this 20 and 25 start that we're seeing at the time of this recording, a lot of it does go on the hitting. Vlad and Bo and Springer, those are guys. Kirk, they should have traded him in that instead of Moreno. I've said that from the start. Kirk I play Jansen 2-4-7. Kirk can sit on the bench. But those three guys that I mentioned need to be consistent. Vlad and Bo are starting to, though. They've been getting hot. But they still lose games by one run. They still, whatever it may be. The bullpen, Nate Pearson, garbage. No, that project's not working, right? The pitching's been great, except some of the bullpen's been struggling. Swanson, what happened, bro? I know he's had a lot happen outside of baseball. Credit there, okay? But again, there's been struggles in this team, and the accountability has to be on some of those players that are getting paid the big checks. I think it's been since they lost the Twins last year. The immaturity with Vlad going, calm down, Bo, calm down. And he's getting off second base. And I remember sitting in my hotel or in my Airbnb in Italy with my head saying, Vlad, go back. And because the pitcher went like this, right? He did the He wasn't fixing his hair, I'll tell you right now. And he picked him off, and Vlad was like, no, I'm safe. No, you weren't, dude. You were not safe. The accountability for those actions, I'm sure, were addressed. I am pointing my finger at Schneider. I've not now, and it's always the coach who takes the brunt of it, which is unfortunate. But I think you got to look at a different voice of accountability to be held in there. But ultimately, Shapiro and Atkins, they're calling out the fans for saying they should be relaxing and not be mad. Listen, pal, no, we're not going to relax. You're Rogers Media. You have millions of dollars. You did nothing to improve this team. You were going to spend $700 million on Shohei. Didn't happen. Okay, you spent it nowhere else to try to improve this team or address what was needed. They did not have success in Cleveland, and it's nothing that went here. Okay, the Blue Jays need to make moves, and those moves, I think, need to be on the voice in the clubhouse, moving out a big name, which is Springer somehow, if anyone's going to take that contract, but who would at this rate, and addressing those areas and really trying to be that consistent hitting team, whatever it takes to be that, okay, because their pitching is actually really good. I like their starting pitching. The bullpen, it needs to wake up. But I think the upper management seems to be a little bit of a problem because I don't know what ball that they're watching right now, but this is not the Blue Jays that were from a couple years ago. Even though they choked against Seattle a couple years ago, at least it was exciting to watch them, and there was a lot of optimism for the future. Right now, we're seeing a team that's like this. They're not going to go over that hump, and this year, they might not make the playoffs, and that would be a catastrophic failure for this roster and this team and this city because despite how good the AL East is, they should be competing with the topper thresholds of the AL East in the American League. Connor, final thoughts of that if you have any before we wrap up.
No, for sure. I mean, we're getting close to year 10 of the Mark Shapiro regime. Sounds
like Brendan Shanahan. What does that sound like?
What needs to give, right? That's the question. What needs to give? You know, I mean, we're at the point where I think the leash has been long enough. You've had the time to implement your vision, and if your vision is last place with your core of the order not being able to get you over that hump that you had mentioned, then maybe it's time to move on.
I'll give them to the All-Star break. If they're not in if they're in the same type of position they are now by the All-Star break, there better be a clean house of management and upper management. Not same players yet. You can let the new manager and the new manager figure that out, that shit show for Springer and all that. But if they're not, I'll give them till then. And I think that's way too late because in baseball, I'll give them till that, though, because we're already here. We're already in last place, okay? We're already here. So we'll see.
Do you think that Craig Berube could coach the Jays?
Probably hold them more accountable, that's for sure. Connor, last question. I had somebody say we should ask Connor one-worded questions before we let him go.
Oh, God.
What definitions mean in baseball instead of me explaining it.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
I'm putting you on the spot. Can you explain what WAR is in baseball?
Okay, like in layman's terms, WAR is the value that you add to a team over the course of a season. It stands for wins above replacement, which means that if you were to take any AAA player, that would be the floor of what an MLB player should be. The WAR is how much above or below that line is. So if you're a negative WAR player, that means that we could likely find somebody in AAA that would outperform you. And if you're a positive WAR player, then at least you're doing better than whoever they could pull from AAA to outperform you.
Love that. I'm going to put you on the spot with some of those little statistics, and I'm not going to be the one to answer them because you're the true baseball expert. And as we get to our closing, Connor, local baseball men's league is just about to get started this week. The Pandas, the 91N Pandas, 91N, that's who powers us here on the Game Sports Podcast. That is going for their three-peat. The last three-peat in this league. Connor, can you name it?
Oh, God, no.
I'm looking at the trophy right now. Guess what? None. The Slugs, the last double peat, they went back to back, and they didn't. There could be the first three-peat team in this league could be the Pandas this year.
I heard you have a couple ex-Black Sox have put together a team. I heard that they're coming for you. So
yeah, the Flamingos.
Best of luck. Best of luck with that.
I know. I heard there's a good team in the league. I like that though. That's good. You got to dethrone the Kings sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
Nonetheless, we'll see if the Pandas can go for back-to-back this week. The Men's League Baseball and Tuesday restarts. Let us know if you're playing Men's League Baseball and how you're doing, and we can we'll give you a little shout-out if you want to interact. We'll definitely add that in a little bit of time because we go overtime always on this podcast in this segment. This has been Strike Zone. Connor, yep, we're 10 minutes over. That's famous for us, but it was great content that we had overall. We hope that you enjoyed it, viewers, listeners. Connor, I want to say thank you to you. Thanks to everyone who's a part of the show here tonight as we get to our conclusion. But Connor, thank you and happy birthday again, my friend.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Awesome. That's Connor Henderson. This has been the Strike Zone segment, and I'm David McCaig on behalf of the Game Sports Podcast. Just to remind everybody, our next upload will be about Rod Black, finally getting that up. My apologies. It's my fault. I've been renovating the basement downstairs. Lots going on. So that Rod Black interview will be up in substitution, likely of a new show next week. Okay, so this will be our last. This will be the news show this week, but we'll not have one until the following week, just so everybody knows. But Rod Black will be uploaded in between that, so keep an eye on that. But make sure you hit like, follow, subscribe on all the platforms of the Game Sports Podcast, in particular 91N. And until next time, I'm here to remind you: keep your stick on the ice, swing your bats, catch touchdowns, drain your threes, and shoot your shots.